Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Tonight on Houselights, we swing into Michael Curtiz's The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938, the film that turned Errol Flynn into the definitive swashbuckler and proved Technicolor wasn't just for musicals and fairy tales. It's Warner Brothers firing on all cylinders to create pure escapist propaganda. Tyranny is bad, rebellion is sexy, and rich people should absolutely get robbed at archery tournaments. This is the movie that established every medieval adventure template, from sword choreography to the idea that tights are somehow threatening. With me is ready to leap from balconies without checking if there's something to land on, Darren Moser, and bringing serious Basil Rathbone dueling energy, precise, elegant, and absolutely ready to get stabbed by the end, is John Mills. The Adventures of Robin Hood means every deer you poach is a political statement, every arrow you fire makes a comedically satisfying sound effect that will later be used in Star Wars, and every romance requires at least one stolen kiss in the forest. So tonight, let's rob from the rich, give to the poor, and somehow make Lincoln Green look absolutely incredible.
Lincoln Green, it's so
Lincoln Green. Lincoln Green. And
Are
as
you
for your
guys ready?
comment about tights, I just want to go on record as saying they're very liberating. Having performed in tights, I can tell you that it's a very lovely sensation, and you feel like a sprite in the woods. So I understand why they were wearing them.
A little nymph, if you will. What I absolutely love, and I say this ironically, is like as Robin Hood is recruiting people into his gang, as he's going further and further deeper into Sherwood Forest and getting the talent that he needs, we skip the scene where he's passing out green tights so that they're all matching in the woods. Listen, in order, you may ask for a leather jacket or a cool necklace. No, everybody needs to know we're a part of the same gang.
Yes, it's
green tights.
The thing is, it's important for every military force to have a uniform. So you truly know that everything has come together at the end when they're all in uniform. Yeah. They all, you know what force that is. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not dumb enough to be stormtrooper or, the Royal Guard. Like they're not going to be in red or white. They're going to be green, because then you disappear into the forest.
Yes, that green blended very beautifully with the trees in the woods. You couldn't tell. Where were they? I had no idea.
That was obviously England, not Southern California, obviously. The brightest of sunny days during the hanging scene.
I was actually thinking about that. Like I was comparing and contrasting it to Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because the structure is very similar. I should say certain beats are very similar, because it all comes from the same legend, of course. But the hanging scene, like I remember in Prince of Thieves, it looks like England because it's rainy and it's gray.
They didn't worry about little details like that back in 38. They're like, people don't come to movies to see the realism of England. They come to see Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland.
Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that map of California?
Yes.
That has it was like an old movie making map where it's just like, oh, if you're gonna be in England, go to this
Swiss
neighborhood.
Alps is this area, and
and if you're gonna go to Saudi, or like if you're gonna go to a desert, go to this area of California. It's awesome. I loved it. I should post that on the page. Regardless, Darren, when was the first time you saw this movie?
Oh my goodness. This one I've seen many, many times over. I probably saw it earlier than I can remember, but I remember watching it and re-falling in love with it around college. Again, like film students were this is the kind of movie you would kind of sink your teeth into. And it's so interesting looking at it, because it really is the template, the forerunner of the Robin Hood movie. And not that other things haven't shifted and given it their own take, like you said, the Kevin Costner one and others, that are more realistic. But this is it's like Akira. Like that and how that inspired everything after it. Like, you have the references. There's so many references, even though it's the same legend, the look of it, how they pulled it together, it all comes from here. And so, I mean, already I give it just a main mark for that. But we're going to get into that.
Now, Darren, you've been in love with this for a very long time. John, how long have you been in love with this movie?
Well, it's very recent that I encountered it. I had never watched this before. This is one of those things where, my dad had his definite loves, but this never came on TV, and my dad didn't love it so much that he bought a videotape of it or anything like that. It was just, I was always aware of it. I knew who Errol Flynn was. I knew how well regarded this was in terms of like movie history. Honestly, I was surprised it was in Technicolor. I was like, it came up and I was like, oh, hell, I thought this was black and white. And it was like, not that I was like disappointed or anything, but I was like, I was like pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, okay, right. They really spent a dime on this thing. Good for them. But yeah, it was very recent. I had never seen it before. And regardless of anything else about it, you guys have already talked about how it set the template and everything, but like, there are so many things that I see referenced by the generation of filmmakers I grew up watching embedded within this. The expectation, like you talked about the arrow sound, the expectation of what something sounds like is in here. The expectation of how you stage a big scene, the expectation of how you stage a sword fight. Like, there's so much where I'm like, they really, because there were no rules before it. They got to set this up, and then everybody saw it, everybody loved it, and it was like, okay, well, I guess that's, zero. That's what we build the foundation on and go from. There's so many hallmarks that I look at in this movie where I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that's where that came from. Or like, I mean, even like you were talking about the tights thing. I was like, man, those are really green tights. And it's like, but it's also fun to go and cast yourself back in 1938. And it's like, yeah, nobody cared. Nobody's looking for realism. Right. I mean, it's the 30s. They're on the brink of World War II, and the Depression's been just dragging on. Yeah, I want to go see something that's in Technicolor and beautiful. And the hero is a smart aleck, and all the bad guys get their just desserts. Yeah, I want to see that. And it's like, it informs so much of a response afterward of like the dragon people were chasing when they were trying to make blockbusters and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Now, this is, I should have prefaced it at the beginning, but we are beginning the House of Curtiz. And we're going to be doing 3 of his films, beginning with this one, The Adventures of Robin Hood. And since this is a director-focused podcast, we should mention that this movie is technically co-directed by Curtiz and William Keighley. And Keighley was the original director, and he was fired after 2 months of production. Because
2 months?
2 months. After 2 months, the studio was like, you're already going over budget, and your dailies suck. Like, they're too slow-paced and uninteresting, is what they said. And so they brought in Michael Curtiz. And the only problem is that Curtiz and Flynn hated each other. Absolutely hated each other. And fighting nonstop about the direction, about his character, even about his wig. They had to redesign his wig halfway through production, which you probably could witness if you watch, like, his hair changes throughout the movie.
It's a little noticeable. A little bit. Yeah.
And also, like, I think the first thing that Curtiz directed in temporal order would be when Robin Hood brings the stag into the hall. That's the first thing that Curtiz directs.
Which is a really important scene, like, for setting up the tone of who Robin is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that I feel like the movie, I mean, I'm sure that they didn't shoot it in order, but the movie definitely kicks in a little bit more after that, because the stuff right before that I thought was a mess, even though it was very minimal, where you have, they're going after Much for poaching the deer and I had no idea where anything was, like where we were geographically, like where Robin Hood and Will Scarlet were in relation to Guy of Gisborne and
Are they
everybody
5
else.
feet away? Are they 30 feet away?
Are they 30? Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, can they overhear them? Like, they can clearly see them, but yet they're not acting like they can see them. And I was like, this is rough even for a 30s movie. And then like he confronts Gisborne, and then he just like he's telling him off, and then all of a sudden he just whips out his bow, and him and all of his knights just run away immediately. Like, oh my God, this guy has a bow. You know?
He's got a loaded slingshot, and he's not afraid to use it.
It's like, you fool, we all have swords.
But what's crazy to me is, you say he had been, Dealey had been working on it for 2 months, 60 days. And like, considering the fact that, for instance, Raiders of the Lost Ark is shot in, I think it was like 82 or 83 days. I look at this and I'm like, wait, it's not like they had like to set up effects shots and stuff like that. It's like 60 days and you had to bring somebody else on, and your movie isn't even 2 hours. Like that blows my mind. But I think probably it speaks to Curtiz as a great director, because I know everybody hates when I say this sort of thing, but a director is in many senses a project manager, right? Curtiz gets it across the line, gets it edited, gets it put together, creates something everybody loves, and he's brought in to like just pinch hit. It's like that's somebody who really knows what they're doing. So I'd be really interested. There's got to be a book out there that details why Errol Flynn and he hated each other. Like unless it was something where it was like, he stole Flynn's wife or something like that. And it's like, which I don't think happened because it's Errol Flynn. I mean, who does that to Errol Flynn, right? Like,
Errol Flynn steals your wife. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
That's what happens. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I mean, I would guess it's something along the lines of, and we've seen it before with leading men who kind of have that director chip on their shoulder, and they really want it to be their vision, and they really don't like giving up control at all. But the 2-month thing that boggles my mind is that I'm assuming that's 2 months of actually shooting, not like 2 months of pre-production. So
yeah, I don't know,
or roughly, but even if it's not, you're talking about all your main sets are probably built at that point. Like, so much money, the over budget money has gone into creating these lavish settings. And so again, I hope to find a book that really, catalogs it, because, did Curtiz come in and go, okay, here's our castle set, like the grand hall. How do we shoot this in a way? And one, you get the amazing establishing shots of that deer scene, he comes in with the buck. But later, we get the infamously famous silhouette sword fight in the same space. Like, so I'm just picturing like Curtiz taking the space and maybe adding, it's like, okay, we need some more stairs over here because I want to do this, and let's but also, so he's taking what he's given, but he's also, I'm assuming, embellishing on it to just give it that look, and it just really pays off.
Well, and to give him a lot of credit, and I think probably the Technicolor provided some of a challenge for this too, but maybe helped out a little bit here and there. But like the backdrops, there were moments where you have to really give credit, because you sit there and you go, you can't always tell where the backdrop ends and the real thing begins. And I think that speaks to Curtiz as a director, because, like you're saying, Darren, like the most he can do at this point is he's got to come in, he's got to get it done. How much of himself can he put into it? And I think the himself that he puts into it is that thing of saying, okay, here's how I can use the space very effectively. And he can look at it very professionally and say, okay, here, I got this, I got this, I got this. We're going to move here. We're going to do that. I'm willing to bet that he comes in and has conflict with Flynn, not just over vision type of stuff, but over the fact that he has to come in and be like, listen, champ, we're going to do this my way because we got to get this done. And probably Flynn doesn't like being spoken to like that. And Curtiz is coming in is like, oh, no, chop, chop. Let's move along. We don't have time for this anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm definitely there has to be some truth in that. And and I just looked it up because he's Curtiz. I just looked up the pronunciation. Curtiz is Hungarian American. That's why it's pronounced that way. Because I couldn't remember, and I called him Curtis for years. It's Curtiz. So one thing that I definitely want to talk about, and I think a lot of people gloss over, is the Technicolor. You know, like we don't really care about it now because we're almost 100 years past that date. But this was monumental at the time. I mean, just gigantic. And like I alluded to at the beginning, it was like, well, why would we use Technicolor in this kind of film? Like, it's not a musical. It's not a fairy tale. Like, why would we use Technicolor? And so Warner Brothers, made a gamble on putting it on this kind of action film. And I think it was, let me see, it was 11. Yeah, the production used all 11 Technicolor cameras in existence in 1938. And they were all returned to Technicolor at the end of each day of filming.
Jeez.
So they had to return them and pick them up at the end of each day. It's kind of like Nolan and using every IMAX camera in existence for his movies.
It's exactly like that. Just a different era. No, I think, I mean, we laugh about the green and the tights and stuff, but again, you wanted a colorful movie. You wanted color to be everywhere. The velvets and the pleating and the, all of it, it makes it, otherwise it'd be flat and dull. Like,
they even sprayed the tree leaves green.
Extra green for this tree.
They did, because it was during early fall. And so things started to change. It started getting rainy, and they just weren't popping the way that they wanted them to. And so they sprayed them with vegetable dye, green vegetable dye, to make them pop. It's like how people
spray vegetable dye.
No,
yeah,
listen,
I'm sure.
At least it wasn't spray paint. But the thing is, you're talking about like how times change and everything. First and foremost, looking at the Technicolor in this, and then Wizard of Oz comes out a year later, you can see actually a technological leap in terms of how the color is handled in 1 year. Like you said, Tristan, we're almost a century past the introduction of this tech. And it's like, it suddenly became clear to me exactly how fast it developed over time. But also, you talk about spraying with the vegetable dye and everything. Was I the only one watching this? No, it's my first time with it. But every time I watch a movie like this and encounter it for the first time from this time period, and I see stuntman, like certain stunts happen. He jumped on the horse. He knocked a guy off the horse. He jumped off the stairs. I'm like, somebody broke an ankle somewhere along the lines in production, didn't
you? Don't need
like somebody got messed up.
You don't need a hidden thing.
There was no mattress under that.
Yeah.
That had to hurt like hell.
Every time
there was more than a few stunts like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it like, when Basil Rathbone, Guy Gisborne, is killed and then falls, and you're like, is that a dummy, or is that just a really unlucky soul? Because he bounces like a person. I don't know.
Like, there's certain times when you see a drop and you feel that drop, and we're like, I hope that stuntman got workman's comp for that one. But actually, speaking of the stunts and everything, there's one stunt in particular that I absolutely loved. Like, it totally brought me into the world. It felt like I was watching a Bustin Keaton short film, where they're all escaping from the hanging, and Robin Hood is like, no, wait, I got an idea. And he hangs back, and then he jumps off his horse, cuts the rope to the drawbridge. The drawbridge goes down. He flies up, and then they're like, Robin, what are you doing? He's like, 1 minute. And he uses that rope that he just cut off to fling off the other side and land like a good 15 feet.
Yes.
And it stops the bad guys from pursuing him. That was a great action piece. That was a great stunt. And it was all real and in camera. They cut once. Actually, excuse me, they cut twice. It was, they show him go up, cut to him on top. They cut again, him going down. That was all that they needed. And it was real. You felt like it actually happened because it did.
Well, I had a thought that happened after that scene where I looked at it and I said, they could have given him a few more feet of rope. So there's almost a feeling of like, feel like somebody made a choice here where they're like, no, you're fine with the amount of rope. And it dropped, and it was like, that really hurt. It's like, well, we got it though. So let's just keep moving.
Or the stuntman was just like they said, they're like, listen, this is the longest rope we got. He's like, 2 more beers.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You can afford to get every Technicolor camera in existence, but you can't run down to the hardware store and get a little more rope.
Just a tiny bit more rope. Just a tiny bit more.
Tristan, I wanted to ask you, because back to the story of Robin Hood a bit. I love the story, guys. It's one of my favorites. The summer camp I worked at, the age group camp that I ran was Sherwood Forest themed. So, which unfortunately, I think they've kind of retired that because the kids don't know it anymore. Like, it is just not as prevalent in pop culture. So the last couple of years, they're like, what do you mean? Who is Robin Hood? Who is the sheriff? Like, it's not as prevalent. But to that, I was always surprised in this story that Guy of Gisborne is the lead, is the main antagonist, and the sheriff is kind of a comedy character that's like barely in it, which I think is greatly reversed by what we're more used to in modern times, where the sheriff is the big bad and Guy is either never mentioned or in the background. So what do you think about how they tell this version of the legend? Does it work for you as far as you can get behind a guy named Guy, or do you wish that like maybe just give Guy the sheriff's part and make the sheriff the baddie? Like, I mean, no one's going to top Alan in that regard, but how does that part of the story come across to you?
Guy of Gisborne, like just his character overall.
Yeah, just his character. I mean, it's Basil Rathbone, but it's still Guy of Gisborne.
Okay. This is not a movie you watch for the script. This is you watch it for the spectacle, the Technicolor, the swashbuckling. Every single person in this movie was one-dimensional. It's just there was no arc, there was no depth. Everybody was as deep as a bird bath, and it's just sometimes it's okay. But there was no threat to Gisborne whatsoever. There was no real protagonist antagonist relationship, honestly, where like the first time we see Gisborne encounter Robin Hood, he runs away just at the sight of his bow, even though he has literal knights with him. Like, he doesn't even say a word. Like, he pisses himself and then he runs away. We're like, okay, so this is our big bad. That's the first scene. Okay. And then like a couple scenes down the road, like he captures him and then takes him to his camp, strips him, and then has a party in front of him and then kicks him to the curb. We're like, okay, we're just humiliating the bad guy again, and he never has enough of it. He's a glutton for punishment. I'm surprised that Rathbone even agreed to this, because you'd think some ego would kick in where they're just like, are we going to put him in a dress later? What are we going to do? And so, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. It's just like, it would have been better if it was a no-named knight each time.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to sort of like what Darren's pointing at here, where it's like, I think over time, Darren, that as they've retold the story, I think probably people revisit it and they go, I mean, what do? You simplify.
Yeah.
I don't need 3 bad guys.
You don't need Guy and the sheriff. It's too much.
Let me take the wisecrackery of the sheriff, the menace of Prince John, and then the, I don't know, land holdings of Guy of Gisborne, and put all 3 of them together.
Tracts of land.
Exactly. But, you can take all 3 of those characters and, Tristan, you're right. They're all one-dimensional. You put 3 characters together, you get at least 3 dimensions, right? Something like that.
That's how story writing works.
Sure. Why not? 3 one-dimensional characters equal. But I think that that speaks to something that was said all the way at the beginning when we were starting, where it was like, oh, Technicolor, but it's not a fairy tale or a musical. I think it is a fairy tale. Again, going back to the fact that it's 1938. Why do we put it in color? Because life is gray. Life is not a happy place. So put something colorful up there. And on top of that, why are they all one-dimensional? Honestly, I'll give it a pass on that as well, because they want to just see the guy stick it to the man. Like Wall Street's crash screws everybody. And, but there are still, rich people. So it's like, screw them. So who's a rich guy that I can be mad at? And the law is inept. Okay. Yeah, there you go. And then our political leadership is idiotic. Great. There you go. Like, it gives everybody a vent. And so, yeah, Robin's never in danger because the audience isn't going for anything deep. They're going for, like, this is a movie where I look at it as they tailored something to just say, this is what the crowd wants. This is what we're going to give them. We're not going to be what would be, I guess, sort of like a modern 21st century artiste, where it's like, no, I can't give the crowd what they want. I must give them what they deserve. It's like, no, there is a place for filmmaking that's like, you know what? The crowd wants the red meat. Throw the red meat to them. And I think this falls in that category.
I think you're right. But one thing that I think did bother me was the introduction of Robin Hood, because there was no introduction of Robin Hood. It was, he just rode in his green tights, and everyone's supposed to know who he is and what he does and why he does it. And
I mean, they were trying to set it up like it was already happening. Like other stories, we see Prince John go bad, and they kind of try to make it sound like, oh, we know of you, Robin. You're the outlaw. So he's already an outlaw. King Richard is already gone. But you're absolutely right, Tristan, though. They did not nail that intro. The pieces are there, but it is a rough.
Yeah, I think that's I feel like if we just did that a little bit better, and if we did that a little bit more coherently, just like even just a little bit more, I feel like it would have gone a long way with establishing the relationship between Robin of Locksley and the Saxons, and his relationship to the Normans and the crown and everything like that. And also that scene just pisses me off in particular. Because I'm probably soured from it because of all the other things that are wrong with it. But it did get better. It did kick into gear after that scene.
Well, I think there's also something to be said for the fact that, especially back then, what is a film is like sort of coming together. And I think that they don't feel a great deal of pressure to give a backstory to Robin, because I would argue that Robin Hood, Darren, you said kids nowadays don't know who Robin Hood is. But back then, everybody knew who Robin Hood was. Like, it feels like more of a touchstone moment. And it's like, it's sort of like making a Spider-Man movie now, where it's like, we don't
about to utter Spider-Man. Yeah.
We don't need to kill Uncle Ben again. Okay. Let's just, he's dead. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Robin Hood
actually,
killed
I spoke
Uncle
with
Ben. Got it.
I was walking with my 8-year-old, and she said, she's like, hey, can we play video games when we get home? And I said, no, I gotta watch Adventures of Robin Hood.
Daddy's got homework. Sorry.
Daddy's got homework. Sorry. I gotta watch Adventures of Robin Hood. You could watch it with me. She's like, when was it made? I said 1938. And she goes, nah, that's okay. And I said, I was like,
is it a talkie?
I said, do you know who Robin Hood is? I was like, I don't think we've ever had this conversation. And she said, she's like, yeah. Like, I was on my iPad, and there was a whole bunch of folk tales, and Robin Hood was one of them. And she's like, I just don't know how he's still alive today. And I was like, he's not. I don't even think he was real, baby. She's like, oh, okay.
Oh, no. How could you do that? Robin, you know what? Yes, Virginia, there is a Robin Hood. Okay. And he's the Robin Hood in all of our hearts when I feel that I shouldn't have to pay $3 for a fountain soda at the place. So you bet your ass I'm going to get that free refill. It's implied when I'm sitting in there, okay? That's my little Robin Hood act right there. So, no, that is the thing that sucks, though, is because it is so much more fun to believe in the legend. And it's like, I think that's also another thing is this is definitely a time period, as film is just sort of coalescing as an art form where they're not trying to reinvent the reality of the legend. I've never watched the Russell Crowe. It's Russell Crowe in Robin Hood, right?
Right. It was Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe. Yeah.
No desire to see it.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good.
I believe you.
I was so stoked.
It looked like Britain.
Right.
It
Yes.
looked like Britain. That was one of the greatest trailers ever made. Legitimate, hands down. I'm not being facetious. It was one of the greatest trailers ever made. It got me so stoked for that movie, and I was so on board because I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan and I'm a huge Russell Crowe fan. And I watched it and I was like, good Lord. It was like the anti-Casino Royale, where he wasn't Robin Hood until the very last moment of the movie, like James Bond was for Casino Royale. But in Casino Royale, it was still a Bond
doing
movie.
Bond stuff.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have his license.
With Robin Hood, he wasn't Robin Hood until the very end of it, and he wasn't doing Robin Hood things. It was terrible.
That's
terrible.
That's awful. That's awful. But you know, also it's like I don't know, man. Like I don't like I hope we're past the era of, well, let's take the old myth and make it grungier and dirtier and more real and stuff like that. It's like there's something to be said for it's okay to go and just have a good old-fashioned adventure. A romp.
Men in Tights.
Yeah, we got Men in Tights, but I have a much more modern example. So they're remaking Tomb Raider again. And so the first one was fun-loving with Angelina Jolie. And then they rebooted it with what's her name? And it was more based off of the new reboots of the video game, Alicia Vikander. And that was a terrible movie. That was awful. And so when they were announcing that they were going to make another pass at Tomb Raider, everyone was thinking, oh God, like it's going to be more realistic. It's going to be more down to earth. Like it's what's it going to be like? And then they release an image of what Sophie Turner is going to look like as Lara Croft. And she has the blue top, the red, glasses, the red circle glasses, like in the original game. Like it looks cartoonish in a fun way. And so I think the pendulum is swinging in the other way. Like we're in a post Zack Snyder world. I feel like we're
low blow, man. That was uncalled for right there. That was rude. You better retract that.
I went for the joke. I'm a fan of.
No, it's fair.
I'm one of the people. I'm one of the people who actually liked Batman v Superman and the Justice League. So
if there is, but the thing is, like I'm razzing you, but like he embodies the postmodern heroism moment.
That's the thing. It's just like he is the archetype himself.
Yes.
Of the postmodern superhero where like this superhero is the anti-hero. That's his vibe. That's his goal. So okay, one thing I want to talk about, which is insane, is that so have you guys ever heard of Howard Hill?
No.
At the time, he was deemed the world's greatest archer. And he plays he's a stuntman on the movie as in the movie as well as the main archer. Like whenever there is real archery, he's the one doing it. You see him on screen as Alwyn the Welshman, and you can tell because he runs like a Welshman. But the arrow hits that you see on screen are real.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
I mean, into padding, but they are really shot.
They were padded. They were padded, Darren. It's okay.
I don't care. I show up on set. I'm like,
when he shoots out the candle, and the guy's, I mean, that's just amazing.
Listen, I'm sitting there, Ma, Pa, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the Adventures of Robin Hood. It's going to be a big movie. It's Technicolor. This is the amazing thing. What am I wearing this pad for, Mr. Curtiz? What's happening? Oh, he's going to shoot with the arrow. What?
So it was heavy padding underneath a steel breastplate overlaid with balsa wood.
Not enough.
And each stunt performer was paid $150 per arrow every time they were shot. And apparently, Hill never missed.
Thank goodness. Otherwise, the legends around this film would be very different. Very, very different. I think the thing is, it's not like you have CG back then.
Right.
How
what
are
your
you
options?
fake an arrow hit?
Hire the best archer ever, or put it on wires, or animate the arrows. Like your choices are few.
Yeah.
I was expecting the wires. Like when I was watching it, I was looking for the wires. And I never found any wires.
There were no wires, Tristan.
There was that scene, that montage scene, where like it's towards the end of the first act, and like Robin is kind of like making his presence known.
Yeah,
he's pushing back, and he's just murdering people left and right. He's a stone.
But they all deserved it.
Cold
They were all bad.
killer. They were all bad. He's a serial killer at this point.
Yes.
And so it was started getting so funny because it was just like, oh, we're in a scene and like none of the good guys are around.
Let's spot
Arrow
the one
in the
who's
chest.
gonna die.
Yeah, it was very much let's spot the one who's going to die. And then I started laughing at the scene because it was so ridiculous. And then I was like, as we're getting to the last one, I was like, oh God, please, we're going to get to one where it's just straight up indoors. It's just going to be indoors. And the last one was inside. Where was he? Where were the bad guys? And
Through the window, obviously. Yeah, but yeah.
And at no point did anyone look up or around. Like there was one time when like a note was shot with an arrow, and they all just look at the note, and not a single person was looking around going, where did that come from?
Well, never mind the fact that the arrow comes in and pins it on the note, and they're all like, let's look at the note. My reaction is going to be getting under the table.
In the middle of the castle. Yeah.
I'm going to get under the table.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, we're exposed. We're all helpless right here.
He's not going to try to kill King's John. He's going to just give him an error, a message.
Right.
He's infiltrated the castle, but you know.
There's a line like he won't cross.
Okay. You joke there's a line he won't cross. And I know that he didn't directly do this. I know that he didn't directly do it. But I hate the trope of where the good guy will kill bad guys. Left, like no-name bad guys, left and right, left and right, left and right. And then you get the main bad guy like Gisborne, and he just toys with him. Like
he's like, I'm going to give you back your sword for a fighting chance. Unlike Gary over there, who we just shot point blank.
Screw Gary. Gary didn't deserve a second chance.
So true. Gary knew what he did.
Yeah.
Well, another fun thing about this is we get the pairing of Olivia de Havilland with Errol Flynn again. So this is their third outing together. They were also in Captain Blood and The Charge of the Light Brigade. They were on the Warner Brothers ticket, okay? There were a lot of Warner Brothers movies coming
studio
out.
players.
But after this, I mean, in total, they did 8 movies together. So they were a really common pairing.
Oh, that's crazy.
So
Flynn
that's just how they did
wrote
it.
about her. Like they did so many movies together that Flynn wrote about her in his autobiography. And he said that she didn't really like him too terribly much. Because he would
theme
because he would constantly tease her. So it wasn't. I don't think it was like a hatred thing. It was just like Flynn's annoying.
He was like the annoying kid on the playground that like wouldn't stop with the jokes.
And he's the star. And he's gonna act like the star, and he's gonna I can see that, but it works. They have a little bit of chemistry on stage, as much as the one dimension characters have. It's there, I think.
I think there's something also to be this is going to come out weird, forgive me for it coming out weird or whatever, but what I really loved about it was that she's basically the only part of herself that's showing is her face. And so it's almost like the antithesis of the Howard Hughes era that's coming, where there are certain aspects of costuming that are accentuated. And instead, this is like she's just acting, and it's like it's so delightful, and she's given so much. Like they have to give her a lot of opportunity to act with her expression, because it's almost refreshing to see a movie from a previous time period where they had some restraint in that regard. And it's like, it's wonderful because she is a great actress. She's got tremendous screen presence. And she's given with what little she's given in terms of, overall story weight and stuff like that. It feels like she's given the opportunity to really inhabit things. And I think it's because, there's no voluptuousness to her role. There's no sexuality to her. It's all about the character. And so the camera always has to feature her expression and her acting. And it's like, that in and of itself is an odd thing to feel like that's an odd thing to notice, like it's refreshing in a sense. And maybe that's just me coming at it with first time eyes or something. And it's not exactly like I'm an expert of movies from the 30s and 40s sort of thing. But like the post Howard Hughes era, y'all know what I'm saying. So,
well, like I'm just getting flashbacks to Scorsese's Aviator, where they have that scene where he has to go in front of the film board or the ratings board and defend. And they have these giant posters of all these starlets with just gigantic cleavage. And I think, is it Ian Holm? I think it was
so.
Just like he's the quote unquote mammary expert, and he's just like measuring their chests.
Yeah.
To show that it's not that big of a deal.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't have that problem with this one. You didn't have that problem.
Well, this would be under the Hays Code, right? This era, for sure.
This era would be Hays Code, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think you're right, John. I think her role also is to not be the everyman as far as like the audience's point of view, but she's the royal. She's the noble who understands the plight. That is her role, to come into the camp and be like, oh, Prince John is a terrible person. Because in the beginning, when she's kind of flirting with Guy and all this stuff, like she has no idea. She's just a noble and living her tiny sheltered life that's in the castle. So for that part of her role, she does a great job. And then, we're rounded out with, I think, a great cast. The Merry Men, Little John, all the main names that we've heard. Friar Tuck is always one of my favorite. Eugene Pallett is just...
Oh, he's great.
That voice, every time I hear it, I think he's also in My Man Godfrey. He's been in a bunch of things, but
that's a great movie.
He's got a voice for acting, but also a voice for like animation. I would listen to him voice like any character.
Why was Robin Hood such a dick to Friar Tuck?
He really was.
He felt threatened. Like, I don't know.
Oh man,
I don't know.
It was really off-putting. Like, it was weird, right?
You know what I did enjoy though, because talking of Friar Tuck, is there were so many moments of humor where hey, look, it's no secret I'm in the bag for George Lucas. I love the guy, fanboy, all that stuff. But there are so many moments in here where I see humor that definitely shaped one of my favorite filmmakers' sense of humor. And a lot of it around Friar Tuck, and a lot of it around like stuff that happens in the battle, with him, where, he's hiding up in the rafters, like hitting people on the head and like pulling people's helmets off and hitting them and stuff like that. And it's so silly and stupid, but I'm laughing while I'm looking at it because it's that ultimate sort of like the filmmakers like relieving any tension about danger and be like, look, we're just having fun. Okay. Like we all know, like it's a stage play mentality of like where you're giving the wings to the audience and everybody's going to be okay. All right. Nobody's going to get hurt.
Super stage play. So much of this is stage play where like even the deer, like when he brings the stag into the court, it feels like you're watching a theatrical showing.
Yeah.
Or I always think of the part where the bishop is at the tavern.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He overhears King Richard, like, Your Majesty. And it's like this tightest of close-ups on his eyes. And he just looks, if you want to look up in the dictionary for shifty left-right look, that is it. He's just like, dun, dun.
Yep.
And it's like,
also,
I heard. It's not subtle at all.
Yep. All those, and also like Richard and his men are all wearing different colored robes and capes.
Tunics, yeah.
Like they were all the same cut and same lining, but different colors. Like they look like they're about to go bring gifts to a magic baby in Bethlehem. Okay.
But once they took those off, there was all the, the white, the Red Cross. Yeah.
I love that Richard the Lionheart did that not just once, but twice.
Yep.
Where he rips off his robe and goes, ha ha.
Yeah. He's like, he's like Superman tearing open his shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's, that in and of itself is what I think is also interesting is because when you look at this compared with earlier talkies, like I've watched so many versions of A Christmas Carol, I've lost count. And if you go back to like this super original, you talk about stage play, like it's really interesting because you come here and you see stage play, but it's more refined. We're starting to move toward more film version of stage play than stage play. Like if you go back to the earliest talkies, it's like just a camera set up and it's like, okay, we're putting on a stage play, see, and we're just going to turn on the cameras. Whereas this, at least, you start to see some more, okay, we haven't completely gotten away from that tradition, but we're refining it. It's a little bit more polished than it was just even 10 years before this. So, I know I'm gushing over the thing. This is not, to your point, Tristan, it's not a perfect film by any stretch. This isn't something where I'm like, it's Citizen Kane, which I think came out in the same year, didn't it? Didn't Kane come out in 1938?
What year?
I think Kane came out in 38, or was it 39?
41.
I don't remember films in
was it 41?
Color.
It was
Yeah,
41.
That was way later.
All right. Well, it's all
whatever.
whatever. It's 100 years ago. I wasn't alive back then. Don't come at me.
I don't know if we would go way later.
Yeah.
It's 3 years later.
Yeah, it's close enough. But
I get asked this question a lot. I get asked the editing question. Darren, I'm going to ask you the editing question. So Ralph Dawson won the Best Film Editing Oscar for the movie. Do you think it was deserved?
Oh, totally. I mean, barring a bit of the early blocking, which was probably all they had. Like they didn't get the wide shot that established that Robin and Will were like 30 feet away. So they just had no choice. But there are so many great, I mean, I'm talking more cinematography, but really editing. Yes. I think the way the action is cut together, the way you have to edit in a real movie. And I say real as in, like you were talking about the effects and the stunts, like, okay, literally everyone is swinging swords at each other. They might be rubber, but like you have to edit it in a way where it doesn't look fake and it looks real. And there's
one shot where Robin's sword is bent real bad.
Oh, the very
real
end
bad.
when he comes into Free Maid Marian and he threatens him, and it is bent like 20 degrees, about halfway down the shaft. But so no, I totally see this movie winning Best Editing. From not just the action. I think the action highlights it because that's the kind of editing where we notice and edit more. But even in the slower scenes, or I often think a lot of even the montages, because technically like them preparing the road for ambush, that's a montage. Robin's killing spree with an arrow, that's a montage. Like there's actually quite a few in this movie, but it all comes together. So yeah, I enjoyed the editing and hey, it's a short movie. It's like over and done.
It's a fast one. It's
fast.
It's a fast movie, and the editing in this, I enjoyed the editing in this too. There's a few times when you're like, ooh, that was a weird cut, but at the same time, these kind of movies don't have the same kind of resources or options that we do today, or even in the past 50 years or even 60 years. But like when you look at It's a Wonderful Life, which is in the next decade, everybody loves that movie, super famous, one of the worst edited films ever made in existence. And yet it wins all the awards in America's hearts. So it really all depends. Like if you have a good story and a good picture, it can go a long way.
I will actually I'll supplement what you're saying, Darren, and I'll say that I would argue that in the edit, the moments where it's rough versus the moments where it's not rough is where I bet you can tell the difference in the director replacement, because you're dealing with something wherein, that first director probably didn't give what was needed for everything, whereas Curtiz, being a pro, did. And so I think there are definitely moments where it's like, if you look at scene A and then scene F, and you're like, okay, F is definitely Curtiz, and A was definitely something they had originally from those first 2 months. I'm willing to bet that that's how it breaks down.
100%. I'm very much in the editor's corner, where there's so many times when you see something that's a poor edit, and I wish you could like go to the editor and say, what was this? And they're like, dude, you don't even know what I did to save this film.
The shot that I always think of with that is the shot in Alien where they put Ian Holmes' head on the table,
Yeah.
and they
Yes.
kind of try to stabilize it, and then they jump match cut it, and it is so obviously not a good match, but it is literally all they had. Like,
Right.
if
What are
they
you
had
gonna
had
do?
anything better, they would have used that. So I just, I let it go.
Yeah, my professors always said, like, cut for performance, not continuity. Where they, like, audiences will forgive a continuity mistake, they will not forgive a performance mistake. And that has always stuck with me with my career. And I think that's something that we as audience, like as film nerds, need to internalize sometimes, where we need to give the editor the benefit of the doubt. But like when it's a super high budget, Hollywood movie, and they had 16 angles of the thing, you're just like, no, shut up. You did not have an excuse for this one.
Well, nowadays it's more like you cheaped out on the special effects budget, and we know it, and it didn't come together.
I can tell you that one of the things that I think might creep back in is a willingness to separate from perfection. Because in the age of the LLM and the image generator, imperfections, I think, are going to start being embraced more. So we've been obsessed for a very long time.
Humanity.
But we've been obsessed with a very long time of matching the continuity of the background or the this or the that. And there are so many films that we love through time where the hand he's holding the cup switches from cut to cut, or they're running and like the sky is slightly different and stuff like that. We've become obsessed with that. And so people have been trained to look for it and be like, they start laser focusing in on it. I think people will start, I hope people will start to do what you're saying, Tristan, which is cut for the performance and not the effect or the continuity. Let the imperfection stand, because it shows sort of like a human craftsmanship to it. I'm not saying that somebody's hair should get suddenly shorter on a shuttle trip from orbit to a planet surface, or anything like that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay to let the imperfections stay in. And I kind of hope we're getting back to that moment.
I concur.
All right.
I take it from Tristan's silence that he agrees. So
I do. I like it. All right. Well, I feel like I joked before we started this podcast that we weren't that this episode wasn't going to be a long one, and here we are reaching almost an hour, and I feel like we could keep going, but I feel like let's let the audience, let's leave the audience wanting more. Darren, per tradition, when I'm hosting, how many arrows to the back are you giving this movie?
I knew arrows were going to be involved in this for sure. It's the camera panned over to me and my chest is very puffy. So you're like, I wonder what's going to happen next. No, I'm giving this a 4. There is definitely some rose-colored nostalgia in there. You can see the rose color because it's Technicolor. But, this is such a great movie, and it is so fun to watch. Because it's like the kind of movie you watch, and maybe this happened for you, John, where like when you watch Pulp Fiction and you get all the references that came after it, but you didn't really get them until you saw it. That's how it happened to me when I watched Pulp Fiction with you guys. So for this movie, I think it's the same thing with Robin Hood. You see it, all the little references and the, more in other Robin Hood movies, but they're there. And I think it works really well. It's the original. It sets so much up, and it's fun. And you could have your 8-year-old watch it, and it, I think they almost kind of sidestep around romance a little too much, where they're like, do you, I do, you do, and we, it's like, you could say you love each other. Like, maybe
Wasn't
give
that
her a
afternoon
kiss.
we had together awesome? Let's get married.
Yeah. Well, or at the end, which I think is so funny how transparent it is, where he's like, "Okay, we're gonna get married," and then they immediately leave, like immediately, and then he's like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "May I enjoy all of your commands with equal pleasure?" It's like, oh, we know where they're going. They're heading right out of there
To the
but
chapel
yeah.
to get married.
Right, the bishop. But no, the bishop's still in that room. They left the bishop. No,
Well, he said it really fast. He's like, "You're married. Bye."
Yeah.
And they just ran
he
out.
actually married us. We had he got married on the way in. So
Yeah.
but all that to say, yeah, 4 stars. And I will just give a hint, Tristan. You know, you're talking about the writing and one dimensionality. When we get to our next week's film, that is the exact opposite of this.
John, how many split arrows are you giving this film?
The thing is, it's very tempting whenever you encounter something like this to just give it the 5 by default, because it's like, who am I to question film history and how much people loved it? But yeah, I mean, even of its time, it's not a work of art. It's a work of entertainment for sure. And it's not saying anything. Like, there are movies in Curtiz's, body of work that are saying something, and they're saying something profound. And so I can look at the difference between this and those, and I'm definitely going to give this a 4. It's a very enjoyable 4, and it's a lot of fun. And I could see myself revisiting this, or getting one of my kids to watch and be like, no, it's an old movie, but it's in color. It's okay. It's okay. So yeah, it's a 4. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. And there are so many, like you said, Darren, there are so many references I get now, and I'm glad for it. So 4 from me.
Yeah, with me, I feel like, I kind of echo what you're saying, John, where this movie was the progenitor of so many things that come after it. It's kind of like Predator, where I gave Predator 4 stars, and because of, it influenced so much and gave us so much entertainment and joy that came later. Even if I don't really enjoy it on a 4-star level, I have to appreciate the artistry that went into it and, what came later. This one is kind of the same for me. And you get, once you see this film, you understand so many more references later on in our culture and, what other Robin Hood films are trying to chase. But, you guys could probably guess that I was a little bit more critical of this film than you. And why I'm not trying to rag on the film, but, there's certain things where it's just like, this is big even for the 30s. This kind of there's some amazing films that happen in 30 that have a lot of character depth and a lot of great writing. This is not one of those movies. This is popcorn. This is fun. It's enjoyable. It's entertaining, but I'd have to give this movie a 3 because of all the things that I stated before, where this is fun, but yeah, I probably won't watch it again. So that's 2 4s and a 3. Darren, what are we doing next week?
Oh, well, next week we're jumping forward into the 40s as we go through the house of Michael Curtiz with 1942's Casablanca, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.